Yeah.
So, thank you for inviting me, Lynn. Thank you for inviting me. This is just one string to our bow, and a couple of you around the room have obviously gone through our coaching courses. I know some of you have done our safeguarding courses. One of the things that I'm quite passionate about, having had somebody in my family who unfortunately passed away from dementia, is about making our sport more dementia friendly. And because of that, we committed to making Coach Bowls a dementia-friendly organisation. And on the back of that, I'm now what they call an Alzheimer's Society ambassador. So what I'm talking to you about today is literally a very, very quick introduction to dementia alone. I'm not a counsellor, I'm not an expert, I am literally just an ambassador for the association. We do, so that you're aware, offer this free of charge probably about every 6 to 8 weeks. I offer a free online session to any Coach Bowls member. So if you've got welfare officers that are Coach Bowls members or any of your coaches, they can come online. It takes about 45 minutes to an hour when I do the full thing. And we do that completely free of charge. So it's just so you're aware and you can share that. So my first question, and this is an interactive session now, I'm not going to talk at you. What's the first thing you think about when you hear the word dementia? Anybody?
Loss.
Memory loss.
Loss? Yeah, memory loss we had. Anything else?
Can't remember what to do.
Can't remember, so yeah, again. Anything else?
Mobility movement.
Say that again, sorry?
Mobility.
Mobility, absolutely. And what I think, and there's nothing wrong with this, but what I think we're getting there are very negative views of dementia. And I think that's really important for us to recognise that what society sees dementia, they see as a very negative thing, which is completely understandable. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to challenge that perception, and we're trying to get people to understand that, yes, dementia is something that people live with, but we can try and make things better for them. So, there are some of the perceptions of dementia that you're probably going to, you hear victim of dementia. That's a bit of a bugbear of mine, we'll come on to that later. Lost, confused, childlike, suffer, misery. They're all very, very negative terms, and what we're trying to do is to change the words that we use. So here's an activity for you. If you've got a piece of paper, you can jot them down, but we're trying to get across the fact that there are 5 key messages around dementia. So let's do it together. Dementia is not a natural part of ageing. Absolutely, it's not a natural part of ageing. So not everybody who's old will get dementia, for example. I'll come on to it in a minute. Dementia is caused by what of the brain?
Disease.
Disease. And that's important we remember that. It's a disease. It's not something that everyone's going to get, it's a disease that we can look after. Dementia is not just about losing. Absolutely right. A lot of people think if you get dementia you're going to lose your memory. Not necessarily. It is possible to live well with dementia, good. And there is more to the person than dementia. So let's just drill down on those 5 key messages. Just as I've said there's your answers, okay? So it's important that we try and get these 5 key messages out. So dementia is not a natural part of ageing. Like I said earlier, not everybody who gets old will get dementia. Not everybody who gets dementia will be old. There are cases of people in their 20s who have the disease of dementia. So that's important we understand that. Not, you generally see people and you think, oh, they're getting on a bit, they must have dementia. Not necessarily the case. So let's try and challenge that perception straight away. And I saw, and don't quote me on the exact stats, but I saw a programme with Ross Kemp. Did anybody see the Ross Kemp documentary on dementia? And it's one person, something like 1 person every 3.5 seconds in the UK is diagnosed with dementia. I think that's kind of quite scary. I might have got the stat wrong, but... So that's the first key message. Second key message. Dementia is caused by diseases of the brain. So what I want you to think about is your brain is like a load of fairy lights. And fairy lights, we know, when you put them up on your Christmas tree, one of them might have flickered out, one of them might be broken. Every single one of your fairy lights represents a function of your brain. And people's fairy lights are going to flicker, dim, go out completely, all in different random, I don't know, what's the word? Different random patterns. There you go, thank you. So, thinking about that straight away makes us realise that dementia is not going to affect everybody in the same way. The lights are going to flicker, they're going to go out. Some people's speech might be affected. What else could be affected? Physical, yeah. Coordination. Balance. Straight away we're starting to realise, hold on a minute, you know, it's not just about losing your memory. It's not just about forgetting things. It could be about tripping over something on a regular basis, or perceptions that that you're looking at things might be slightly incorrect. And we'll come on, I'll spend a little bit more time on that in a second. Oh,
Flickering.
it's definitely flickering, but there we go. So, what is dementia? And I think this is important. Does anybody know, I mean, there's a couple of examples. Does anybody know how many versions of dementia there are?
Hundreds, probably.
Yeah, there's over 100 different formats of dementia. So again, it's not just Alzheimer's disease, it's not just vascular. They tend to be the two most well-known versions of dementia. There are loads of different formats of dementia, and each one affects people in different ways. So, I said earlier, it's not just about losing your memory. We talked about those fairy lights flickering. We talked about them dimming. We talked about them going out. I want you to think, sometimes it could be the perception that you're seeing. So there's a tablecloth, and it has lots of apples and pears on the tablecloth. Some formats of dementia, the person may try and pick up one of the apples or pears off the tablecloth, because their perception is that it's real. Another common one is a swirly pattern on a carpet. Some people with dementia see that as snakes, so they don't want to step on it because it's a snake pit. A big one for bowls, a black mat on the floor. Some people with dementia see that as a hole in the ground, and they don't want to step on it. They get very nervous about stepping on the black mat. How many of us still use black mats to step on and bowl off? Straight away, a really easy thing we can do, change the colour of our mats. Yellow mats, blue mats.
No mats at all.
No mat at all. What you're doing is you're not drawing attention to the person with dementia. You're making things better for everybody, whilst making a step that supports the person with dementia. Kitchens. You go into a lot of bowls clubs, kitchens, tea, coffee. A person with dementia might not be able to find their way around the room. They might not know where everything is. Just by labelling the cupboards means that not only are you making things better for the person with dementia, you're also making things better for all the new members of the club. Or perhaps you've had a tidy up and nobody knows where anything is. Quite common. So labelling, things like lockers, things like cupboards. Again, you're not drawing attention to the person with dementia, but you're making things better for everybody whilst making steps to make their life easier. So those are some of the things, and I think the big one that we quite often see as an indicator is, for me, that third one down, changes in inhibition. You might have a person who's very, very quiet, who all of a sudden becomes very vociferous, very exaggerated, might start swearing. They're quite common things. So their inhibitions change. And vice versa, you might have quite an outgoing person become very shy, very quiet, don't want to talk. It's a sign that there is something going on. Doesn't necessarily mean dementia, but it could be a sign of dementia. So these are things that we need to be looking at. Communication is a big one. And again, when we talk about coaching, we talk about making sure you're facing the person you're coaching, you're speaking clearly, you're speaking slowly. That's exactly the same when you're working with anybody really, but certainly someone with dementia. When you're talking to somebody who you think may have dementia, you need to make sure that you're facing them. You speak clearly. You confirm they've understood. They might look at this and say, this is a cup. This is a cup. They know that it's a jug, but their word coming out is a cup. So you just confirm, oh, you mean this jug? And they go, yeah. So sometimes they use the wrong word. They might call a dog a horse. They might call a bowl a jack. It's just about confirming with them. And it's also about understanding that when you're communicating, try and cut all of the vociferous, the external noises out. So if you're having a conversation, instead of, if you know somebody has dementia, instead of, if you've got 3 mats in a row, instead of rolling with them in the middle mat, use one of the ends. So you've just got that little bit less going on around you. So they're all little steps that we can take to help make a person's life easier. And in turn, help them to live well with dementia. Can you imagine how frustrating it must be to go into a kitchen and not know how to make a cup of tea? How must you feel? Must be dreadful. What is our straightforward, what do we want to do as human beings? If somebody can't do that, what do we want to do? Do it for them. That's not what we want to do though. What should we do? Do it with them, help them, support them. Because what we don't want to do is we don't want to de-skill somebody too quickly. So instead of making the cup of tea for them, go in and support them to do it. Look at things that you might be able to put in place. For example, kettles going on the hob, because that's what they used to do. What could we do instead of having an electric kettle going on the hob? Do we just throw the electric kettle away? Do we stop them making the cup of tea because they keep putting the electric kettle on the hob? What should we do? Change the kettle. Change the kettle so it goes on the hob. Rather than making them feel silly, let's work with them to help them live well with their dementia. Talked about that, yeah? So, last one. There is more to the person than the dementia. Just like when we look at somebody who has diabetes, we don't see the diabetes, do we? We see the person. When we look at somebody who has cancer, we don't see cancer, we see the person. Quite often when we look at somebody with dementia, we go, that person's got dementia. Because we're scared of what we should and shouldn't say. And should we speak to them? When my aunt was first diagnosed with well, before she was diagnosed with dementia, we thought she'd got dementia. We tried to broach the subject, and she didn't speak to anybody for 2 weeks. She was mortified that we would suspect that. I mean, as it proved, it was true. But these are the sort of things that people are very, very concerned about. So, you know, just remember, speak to the person as a person, not speak to the dementia first. It goes without saying, doesn't it? It's pretty common sense. So, being what we call a dementia friend is about turning understanding of those 5 key messages into action. Keeping in touch with somebody you know who has dementia, rather than backing away. Making sure we're talking to them. Keeping them involved in their goals. Thinking about the small steps we can take to make that person's life a bit better. Let people know that the Alzheimer's Society is out there. Put it on your websites. Put posters up. That's a great one. Just put something up. Because quite often, having a look at that and saying, oh, there's somewhere I can go for advice, if you suspect a family member or a friend maybe, you know, maybe has dementia, if you know there's somewhere to go without having to actually talk about it with other people, sometimes makes things better. You can go away, you can think about it, you can have a look at a website, you can start to dwell. I know, anybody who's married, you know,
Top.
The top. Okay? So your memories from the top start to fall down. And before long, you're living back in the 80s. Living back in the 1980s. You go into your kitchen, what's different? Microwave. Kettles are different. Toasters are different. Air fryers. Whoa, what's that? What's that gadget? You know, so you go into your kitchen, your fridge looks different. Everything looks different. And you don't know what to do. Now, for every thing on this bookcase, this fact, across here is a big solid oak bookcase. And dementia comes along and it's much more difficult to shake those books off. And for every fact on this bookcase, there is an emotion that goes along with it. So, I want you to imagine, sometimes when I feel like it, I feel very like it, but I'm an 80-year-old lady. And I have dementia. Okay? And you come to visit me, and we have an argument because I can't remember your name. You go away, and you think, well, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, she won't remember tomorrow. Well, actually, I don't remember. But I remember that when you visited, how am I going to feel if we've had an argument? Upset. Upset. Sad. Frustrated. I'm left with that emotion because the fact's fallen off my bookcase, but my emotion bookcase is still strong. Instead, you come and visit me, and we go out for the day. You take me to the seaside. We have an ice cream sitting by the sea. Have a lovely day. How am I feeling now? Happy. Tired, yeah. But a nice tired. Happy. What else? Do I feel wanted? Do I feel loved? Yeah? They're all positive emotions now. And you take me back, and you think, why am I bothering? She doesn't even remember. And I might not remember that we've been out. I might not remember that we've been to the seaside. But what do I remember? Feeling happy, feeling loved, feeling wanted. So it's important we recognise that whilst the person may not remember, or may not be able to communicate, or may not be able to take part in conversations, quite often their emotional bookcase remains strong. And they do have that feeling of feeling wanted, feeling loved, feeling happy. And that for me is where bowls can make a massive, massive impact. Because instead of coming to the club and being shouted at for bowling the wrong bias and bowling across the mat instead of up the mat and taking their turn when it's not their turn and being shouted, oh my God. It's like, do you know what? It doesn't matter. We know this person is living with dementia and we're going to help them live better with that dementia. So if they take their turn at the wrong time, does it really matter? Yes, if it's in the middle of a league game, great. But the chances are they're not going to be playing in a league game. So it doesn't matter if they take their turn at the wrong time. It doesn't matter if they bowl with a jack instead of a bowl. What matters is that they're playing bowls. And we're helping them to live well with dementia for longer. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, we all make assumptions, don't we? Why do we make assumptions? Why do we make different choices? We go off our own personal experiences. We guess that somebody has dementia. We assume, all of which is probably not the best thing to do. It's one of the things I always say when we're talking about coaching is don't assume the person can't do it. Don't assume the person can do it. Find out. It's exactly the same thing. Think about what we're doing when we take over. We're de-skilling, we're frustrating them, we're demotivating them, we're helping them to lose confidence. By encouraging them to keep doing what they're doing, however good or bad they do it, we're going against all of that, aren't we? We're keeping their skills up for longer. We're helping them become less frustrated. We're keeping them motivated for longer. And we're helping them with their confidence. So we're trying to address the opposite of all of that. And remember, if you've met one person with dementia, you've met one person with dementia. You've not met everybody with dementia. Everybody is different. Everybody's perceptions are different. Everybody's life experiences are different. I want to share one more story. It was a true story. I'm paraphrasing very quickly. There was a guy who was living in a care home and he used to sit outside his room in a chair in the corridor. And every time somebody walked past, he would get really shouting and wave his arms at them and get really angry. And so people started to avoid that corridor. They started to walk around because they, oh my God, he's just going to shout at me. And then his family came to visit and they explained that during the war, he was a guide for minefields. And what he was doing was he was sitting in the corridor and he was trying to guide people through the minefield. And just by doing that and recognising that, suddenly people realised he wasn't just getting shouty and agitated, he was actually getting really worried and concerned that he was going to die. So just by changing the way they perceived what he was doing, they allowed him to guide them through the corridor. All of a sudden he started feeling happier in life. He started feeling more included, less frustrated, because people were embracing his reality. And by embracing his reality, he was able to continue to live well for longer, just by adding an extra 30 seconds to a minute on their journey up the corridor and being guided by him. So let's not assume that what people are doing, you know the reason behind it, because we probably don't know the reason behind it. So, further support. The Alzheimer's Society website has got some great stuff on it, so do please look at it. There's a Dementia Support Connect line there, so, and again, Lynn will share this out. There's a talking point, so you can, and there's Dementia Connect. You can actually go onto both of those things and give them real case scenario. This is what's happening, this is the person that we're working with. Have you got some real-time advice? Because these guys are counsellors and these guys are experts at the other end. And they will be able to give you specifics to help work with that person. So be aware of those different logins. I really have, like, whistle-stop tour. Whistle-stop tour of dementia. Normally that takes me about an hour and I've, like, you know, really gone through it very, very quickly. It's just to let those of you who don't know what else we do, obviously the qualifications. short mat qualifications. We've just run a bespoke short mat level 2. So we've got the in fact James has got his assessment coming up very, very soon. Draw attention to you. But we also do level 1 qualifications. You can just go online and just go into any of the level 1, log on, join up any of the flat green courses, and we have specific assessment criteria, etc. against those. The safeguarding courses, adult, basic and time to listen, we run them online. You literally just log on, book yourself a place, and we do them online via Zoom. And we'll shortly be adding an adult time to listen course when we finish testing it. It's going to be ready very soon. Supporting inclusion courses. This is not about people with disabilities alone. We've just been talking about dementia. That supporting inclusion course is great for if you've got people with dementia, people who can't bend over, people who've had surgery, people who perhaps have been ill. How can you continue to involve them and include them in the sport of bowls? And then obviously level 2, so level 1, level 2. So, any questions? See, I said I'd get it done in half an hour.
Yeah, as a coach, predominantly short mat, we were asked to attend an outside bowling club. So we went up and we gave them our thoughts. One of the things was the ladies. The ladies wanted to know how they could bowl backhand because certain parts of your anatomy get in the way. Which, okay, that's fine, but they actually do. So we told them that if you stand this side of the mat, you're actually avoiding it. I had an email not so long ago from the captain of the team said that their team is now doing much better. The ladies are reaching it and so on and so forth. But the thing that I'm coming to is, right at the end of it, there were 2 people that turned up about 5-10 minutes before the end. The lady had the frontal lobe dementia.
Yeah.
And they were new to the area. So we took the time to take them to one side and try and help them. Now she struggled with the fact that she didn't know what to do. So I thought, because I've had dementia in the family 3 times, so I've picked up a little bit each time. I said to the husband, he said, well, she won't be able to do it unless she's a lead and I'm a second and I'm there. So I said, well, have you thought about a 3-word mantra? And he said, no. I said, well, what we need to do, in my opinion, what you need to do is build up a 3-word mantra so that she can pick the wood up, bend down and then bowl. But it has to be her 3 words. It doesn't have to be pick up, bowl, it's her 3 words. And we started to work on it just briefly. What I would need to know, is that the correct thing to do?
Absolutely. And I think that's the thing, is like I said, just because you've met one person with dementia means you've met one person with dementia. So it's about embracing their reality. And if picking up to them means walk the dog, then say walk the dog. We use it quite a lot with performance bowlers as well. We call it a cockpit drill. And we take them back to the start of their cockpit drill. So pick up the bowl, stance, grip, line, deliver. Quite a lot we use that. And so absolutely, picking up on 3 words that mean something to that person, that remind them about the phrases that they go through in that delivery action is exactly what we should be saying. And just to reiterate your point, there is absolutely no difference between a forehand and a backhand on a standard delivery action. I know you guys have some very strange delivery actions as well, and we have people going under legs and all sorts, but on a straightforward delivery action, forehand and backhand is exactly the same biological, physiological, anatomical delivery. It's just about getting that understood, so they're not going across their body and their lady parts aren't getting in the way, shall we say.
This is the big problem that
Yeah.
they had, that they said that they had.
Mm-hmm. And it's getting that understanding across, isn't it?
I've since had the 2 members concerned signed up on the day, to that club.
That's brilliant.
And they are now playing in league matches.
Yeah. And that's great, and it proves,
And
doesn't
to
it?
me, that was an achievement.
Absolutely, it's helping people live well with their dementia, isn't it? So.
But it was because we'd been called to that club in the first place
Yeah.
to try and help them. And apparently they've had quite a few 8-0 wins as well. So
Well, there you go.
didn't go
Hey.
unheeded.
Any more questions?
I think you also need to
quite
be
a lot of what you've gone through applies to stroke people as well.
Yes.
Let's take dementia, so people with stroke.
To be honest, quite a lot of it is common sense as well, isn't it? When I talk about coaching, I always talk about high quality coaching. And a good high quality coach will do a lot of this stuff without thinking about it. But this just opens it up more to, rather than just your trained coaches, it's also talking to everybody in the club. And I firmly believe that we should be rolling this out and getting more and more people in clubs to be doing this, as well as the safeguarding courses. Because it's not one person's responsibility in a club to be aware of this, it's everybody's. Because that's how we make people's lives better. But don't get me on that road, because I'll be here for ages and we want it 20 minutes.
I think Maggie had a question.
Oh, I forgot what I was going to say now. No,
Very good. You're in the right place there.
We have a friend who comes and bowls, and I think you also need to be aware of what medication they're on, because that can alter from week to week. And this particular lady comes with a carer, and I usually have a quiet word and say, are we all right, or has medication, so that I know that she could be reacting in different ways. But
And that's it. I would reiterate that. That's one of the things we talk about with coaches as well, is a coach, it's really important that your coaches know what medication a person is on. Not because they're being nosy, but because they need to know of any changes in medication, changes in symptoms, but also, if you're on an inhaler, where is that inhaler? Because if you need your inhaler in the middle of a session, then the coach or somebody needs to be able to go and get it. EpiPen, I mean, I've got one in my bag. One of the reasons you don't find me eating a lot of these things is because I can't guarantee what's in the food. But I carry an EpiPen, and it's, do people know where my EpiPen is? If you've got somebody with angina, do you know where the angina medication is? It's not just sufficient to know what medication they're on, you also have to know where it is and what to do if you need to use it. So absolutely, it's really important.
This particular lady, she came for quite a few weeks, and to begin with she'd lost all her confidence because she was a really good bowler, and she swore it wasn't her bowl she was bowling with, but anyway we convinced her that it was. But she was bowling and getting better every time. We had to be very patient with her because she reacted in all sorts of odd ways. But at one point she said, which jack am I bowling to? And I said, how many can you see? She said, 2. So I said, well, bowl to the nearest. And she was quite happy with that. But then I said, well, would it help? She wore glasses. Do you think it would help if you took your glasses off? Which we went through. And then that wasn't any better. But I did afterwards have a quiet word with her carer and said, I think she needs to have her eyes tested. Has she had them tested recently? No, she hadn't. Anyway, the carer saw to it, and she did actually need her glasses changing, but nobody had picked it up.
And I think what you've done there is you've embraced her reality, you have tried to work on her confidence, we've had changes in vision demonstrated, you've had lots of confidence demonstrated, and it is literally about recognising that and saying, how can I make this person feel happier? It's not about, well, it's that, well, I don't know, there is only one jack. It's, well, do you know what, how many jacks can you see? 3. Bowl to the one in the middle.
Yeah.
Embrace their reality. It's just about making life better for that person, isn't it?
But it's not easy. It's very, very draining.
Absolutely. It's
yeah.
not easy. You know, and anybody who's lost somebody with dementia knows that. You know, it is hard. It's soul destroying at times. But if we can help that person live better for a bit longer, then we made their life better, haven't we? Any more?
Thank you very much.